Warning, this episode contains spoilers for the movie Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
What can I say? I like ants.
Let's unpack the magic. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to another episode of the Team Unicorn Podcast. I'm Sammy.
And I'm Tyler.
And today we are reviewing
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I don't think we could have we didn't practice that.
No, we didn't.
I didn't even know that's what you were going with, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's do the full thing.
Yep.
Good job, us.
Team Unicorn.
Yeah. So we're going to be reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. What we thought about it. We did very much enjoy the film. We'll get to more specifics on that later. We really did enjoy the film. I think it was a perfect way to start off Phase 5, but I think the perfect way to start off this episode is to, once again, talk about how our week was.
Yes, how our week was. It was Valentine's Day week.
It was Valentine's Day week, and I think...
You went a little extra this year.
I went a little extra this year. I think that we both deserved it after having to go through a pretty rough January month, and I wanted to treat you to something a little extra special.
Yes, it was very sweet. And yeah, normally we don't really make a big thing.
No, I mean, we're
Valentine's Day.
We're on year 14. This is our 13th Valentine's Day together. It's nothing too crazy now these days.
I love you every day of the year.
I don't need one specific. You can buy your own flowers.
I can buy my own flowers.
Yeah, so I took Sammy out on a adventurous day.
Yeah, it was like a choose your own adventure day because you had cards written out, and I had to pick one of the two cards, and that would lead us to our next adventure.
I definitely got it off of TikTok.
I've seen that lots on TikTok.
And one of the girls I work with, McCaslin, she did it for her partner. That she took her partner to, throughout the day and did some stuff. I think hers was just like a birthday type of thing. So I'm like, oh, this seems kind of cool. I'm seeing this a lot on TikTok. So I did it, but I did my own little spin. It wasn't something I filmed for TikTok or whatever. And we had nice little envelopes, and you had to choose one.
I mean, the envelopes were still very nice.
Yeah, the envelopes were very nice.
Like the little cards, yeah.
And then so my harebrained idea was that she has to pick one card, and that's what we did. But if she didn't like that card, then she had to give me a little extra kiss so she could see what was in the second
yeah,
card.
And then I could choose if I wanted.
So I'm like, well, worst case scenario, if the cards don't hit and it just doesn't turn out okay, at least I got kisses throughout the day. But no, it was really, really fun.
It was very fun.
It was a cold day. It was very cold and windy.
Yeah, that wind was very cold because one of the activities that we did was going downtown. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of murals on the sides of buildings that local artists have painted. So we looked up a bunch of them and went to them and took pictures. Yeah,
actually, our Valentine's Day post on Instagram was from one of those. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was fun. It was just I planned the entire day out. I think we got through it pretty quickly because there was times where I'm just kind of I don't have anything planned for another hour, so we have to figure out what to do here. But I just felt like we deserved something a little extra special, and you got to go on a little Target shopping spree, and
we had to go out for breakfast.
I feel
like going out for breakfast is such a treat. It's just we don't really do it that often, no. And when we do, it's just really special. So we've been trying to we usually pick local places to go, unless I'm really craving a McGriddles.
McGriddles? McGriddles.
Yeah, that's
so you need multiple McGriddles.
No, that's the technical term for it. Uh-huh. Or how you're supposed to say it, McGriddles.
Yeah, you just want extra McGriddles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we tried actually a new place downtown De Pere, right down the river from us, the Exchange, and that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. I had the s'mores bubble waffle.
That's what sold me on taking you there, and I'm just because we have two places in town that I feel like Sammy really, really likes, Black Honey Hashery, and then just more recently, Toast & Co. was really, really good. But both of those are a jaunt out into De Pere. So I'm like, well, let's see like what else is available. And like there's other places like the pancake place, which we haven't been in for like a long time. But I'm like, well, let's do something, let's have an option for something new and then something like we've been to. And she picked the something new, which was the Exchange, and that's pretty good. But that's what sold me on adding it to this was they had a s'mores bubble waffle, which is really good. So anything else happened this week that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we had a good Valentine's Day.
Oh, can I talk about what you got me for Valentine's Day?
Oh, yes. Please tell the people.
So Sammy has this gripe against me where she thinks that I just have the dingiest, ugliest, grossest socks.
I just said they're dingy. Like his dingy socks.
My dingy socks. So she would make fun of me for my dingy socks. And they're not like, they're clean. Like we wash them.
Yeah, we wash them.
It's just that I have black socks which have black soles on them. So like when I'm walking around in these socks and black shoes. What did I say? Black socks?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dumb.
The socks are white.
The socks are white. But
the dingy ones are gray.
Yeah, but they're gray now because like I walk around in these black shoes or I work out in these black shoes. So they get like kind of, discolored a little bit. And they're clean. They're just fine socks. And I don't buy my own socks. Like I will never buy my own socks. They always have to come as a gift. So Sammy was making fun of me. And you've been making fun of me for like since before Christmas because I thought you were going to give me these for Christmas.
I did. I did think about getting you socks for Christmas. But...
So my dingy socks are no more. I have thrown almost all of them out, and I now have 12 nice brand new pair of nice crisp, clean white socks. And
just that new sock feeling when you get to pull on the new socks. Like I love it.
So yes, I got new socks and I got a speaker for my desk at work so I could listen to my music finally because we just moved into a new building at where I work. We opened up a brand new state of the art facility, and I have to take phone calls or make outgoing phone calls, but everything goes through the computer now. It's not like an actual telephone on my desk, so it all goes through the speakers, which goes through my headpiece. So I can't listen to music on my computer. So I was listening to it on my phone. I'm like, well, this is just going to drain my battery. So I complained about it enough, and Sammy's like, I'm going to get you a Bluetooth speaker then. And it works out phenomenally, and I love it.
Yeah, it's just this cute
It's just a cute little thing.
Yeah, and it's really pretty blue color, so
yeah, I like it.
something practical and something fun. So
I think they're both practical. Yeah, and I think you would argue with the socks that it's also fun.
Yeah, I love getting new socks. I got 2 new packages of socks for Christmas, and I was very excited.
I would hope that wasn't your favorite gift of Christmas.
Oh, I mean it's up there, but not my favorite. No, I'm kidding.
And then finally, before we get into the Ant-Man news, we got some disappointing news this week too.
Yeah, you got a really disappointing email from the Fox Cities Performing Arts Center about the Winnie the Pooh show.
Yeah, we were very much looking forward to seeing the Winnie the Pooh stage adaptation. It's it was out on Broadway, and then now it's touring, and it's big life-size puppets.
Like how they do Olaf.
In the Frozen musical.
Yeah, in the Frozen musical.
That's how all these puppets are. Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Eeyore, all them. And I think they said was for some reason the tour couldn't continue on for some reason. And it was very vague. They didn't give any specific reason. Their Insta and their Twitter and their Facebook, they aren't giving any reasoning, set reasoning why. It just says that the touring company cannot complete the tour. So our tickets got canceled. Yeah, that's frustrating because we were very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was very excited for that show, and now we can't.
To the point, we were gonna talk about it on the podcast and we're kind of review it. So that's upsetting. That's disappointing.
Yeah, but you know what's not disappointing?
What?
Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania.
I think there are tons of critics that would like to debate you on that.
Well, they're wrong.
Yeah, so this week, getting into our main topic, we are going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, our review of it. We did just go see it yesterday. Mm-hmm. So this is very fresh, still in our minds, and right off the bat, we loved it.
Yeah, I was very pleased with it. I walked away from watching it in a very good mood. Like, I was very, like, I felt very good about it. A lot better than when I watched Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, I remember walking away from that movie just being like, I don't know if I like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed Quantumania. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. So as the time of recording right now, it's currently sitting at like, I think, a 48%, or no, I think it went down to 43% on Rotten Tomatoes.
The critic
score on Rotten Tomatoes. However, the audience score is at 84%. So it's like a complete opposite on that, which I think very much indicates that don't listen to the critics in this situation, listen to the fans that are actually going in there. And like, there are people that are being very loud and very opinionated about this movie, which we'll kind of get into more that when we dive into the more specifics of what happened in it. But I think I kind of equate it to like how, like, yeah, let's get political, like Trump supporters. They're very much loud, boisterous. They don't care. They will they're like, I don't care what you think. This is horrible. That's how I feel like the people that hate this movie are. Like, they're very much like, they can't find any joy in it. Oh, like another comparison, the critic from The Greatest Showman, where he's a critic, but he can't enjoy life. Like, that's how I feel like the people who didn't like this movie are, because there's so much to like about this movie. There's so much to enjoy about this movie. I felt the same way coming out of Thor: Love and Thunder and Multiverse of Madness. Like, I really liked those movies. Like, I do like this one, but like, looking back at Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder, I'm just kind of like, okay, maybe I didn't like it quite as much. Like, I still like both of those movies. I enjoy Thor much more than I do Multiverse of Madness. And I'm like, well, maybe, like, am I gonna have like this kind of fatigue with this movie where I'm gonna be like 3-4 days post watching it, and then I'm just like, oh, okay, well, maybe it wasn't that bad.
Or even or even like a couple months. Like, it's interesting how how you feel like coming out of the theater, like, initially, and then how it settles, like, with you, like, over. And time.
And I don't think that this one's gonna settle. Like, I honestly feel like this one is a very strong movie. We do have some criticisms of it. We're not gonna, like, paint it as like this is the best MCU movie, because it's not. But for what it is and what we got and what it sets up going forward, I personally do really enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess, what were your expectations going into the movie versus like how you felt coming out?
Expectations, I did have a few. I thought it was going to set up Kang more going forward, which it does. Don't get me wrong. But I thought it was going to end on like this big cliffhanger that Kang was going to somehow like make it to like our multiverse, our system, or our universe, and like that's kind of how it was going to end. I did expect there to be death in this movie from a main character. I actually, like, I texted you, I thought it was going to be Hank was going to die in this movie. So I did expect, some sort of emotional death to happen. I didn't expect it to kind of wrap itself up so nicely at the end of the movie, which that is one of my criticisms, which we'll go into. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was just going to be a good movie, which it is. The story, I guess some people think it's maybe not as creative or elaborate of a story, but I mean, it's very much an Ant-Man-esque story.
Yeah, and I think that's what people have to realize when they're going into watching this movie. It's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, it's not, we're not going into Avengers like Kang Dynasty right now. Like, but I think some people, maybe their expectations maybe would have been, maybe they were a little too high with Kang, and maybe that's where some of the criticism is coming in.
And I can see that, because like, obviously we know the names of the movies going forward. We know that Jonathan Majors is going to be Kang for a while. Like, he's been set up already. Like, this isn't the first time we've seen Kang. This is definitely not the last time we're going to see Kang. Like, the reviews that were coming out, that Marvel was picking, because there were so many critical ones, were saying like Kang is like, an Avenger levels an Avenger threat level baddie. Like, he is going to be like that one that rivals Thanos. And I think when you say stuff like that, I think people are going into this movie expecting like an Avengers level type of movie, which this isn't.
It's not. It's an Ant-Man movie, guys.
Yes.
So, and I think it very much delivered on that. Like, once you set your, I think once you set that expectation, or like you realize like it's an Ant-Man movie, then I think for what it did, I think it did a really good job. Because I remember telling you yesterday, I feel like it's kind of starting to get us talking more and coming up with our own theories about where the MCU is going and like what's going to happen with Kang. Because obviously, like, yes, they defeated maybe that Kang. I don't know if he's dead.
I don't think he's dead either.
I don't think that variation of Kang is dead. But yeah, you kind of get the feeling like it kind of wraps up nice, like with a bow at the end. But did it really? I think it kind of creates a lot of questions, which I really like, because I feel like it's been a minute since we've had that in a Marvel movie, where it's kind of getting us
interested.
Yeah, and getting us kind of revved up, when we got introduced to Thanos and finding out he's hunting Infinity Stones. Like, where are those Infinity Stones?
Mm-hmm.
How is he going to get them? Like, what's going to happen? Like, I feel like this is what's happening with Kang, especially seeing all of those different variants at the end. Like, obviously, like, they're going to start popping up in other places. Like, where are we going to see them next?
And going on that same kind of idea, like, it kind of reminds me of how they kind of sprinkled Loki in phase 1 to set up the Avengers. Mm-hmm. Like, you see him in obviously Thor and Thor 2, and then you see him in a post-credit scene, and so it's kind of just like, oh, like, Loki is here. Like, there is, like, you're the expectation going in through phase 1 is like, oh, like, we kind of know what's going to happen in Avengers, not what's going to happen, like who's going to be the big bad in Avengers, because of what we've been seeing with Loki kind of sprinkled, in and out there in phase 1. So I think that's kind of what they're doing here, to the point where, like, Loki was the main villain essentially in Avengers, but he was also the main, antagonist in the first Thor movie. Well, this is kind of that same way. Like, we'll see Kang again. I don't know if it'll be this version or a similar version eventually in Kang Dynasty in the Avengers, but like, we're setting him up and having that like main antagonist in this film too. So and it's kind of the same thing of like, Thanos just popping up here or there in the, the Guardians movies, or in the Guardians movies, or at the end of the Avengers. So it's kind of like, okay, like, we're just planting the seeds. And I think that's what a lot of criticism of, so, the last, like, especially phase 4 was like, well, they're just adding all these characters and they're not planting any seeds. Like, no, we are now planting the seeds. Like, they have been planting the seeds. You just haven't been realizing it.
I think, a lot of phase 4 was getting new stories, new characters, so that, when they're introduced again after, like, Quantumania, like, their story is going to make more sense.
Right.
So it's just, I don't know. You just got to be patient. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the MCU is just so meticulous in what they do. Like, you just have to, like, give it time to unfold and, like, see the bigger picture. Okay, so one of the first, I guess, like, special appearances, I don't know, cameos, or whatever you want to call it, is Jimmy Woo.
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't really get a lot of, like, cameos. Or
we get one big surprise-ish one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But other characters that we've already, like, known. So... yeah, so I was really happy, a little surprised maybe to see Jimmy Woo.
I was really hoping Jimmy was going to be in this one. And especially like where they leave off at the end of Ant-Man 2, where Jimmy's like, oh, you want to go get dinner or something? And Scott's just like, no, why would we? And he's like, oh yeah, but I am free. But so then they finally get to have dinner together. So that was that's kind of a nice little callback. And then Scott gets employee of the century at Baskin Robbins. So that whole first scene is just like he's loving life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's got everything kind of going for him. He's getting you know, a free sandwich and coffee from the local coffee shop because they think he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, you know, I think that was just a really fun way to start the movie. It very much on brand for, you know, Scott's character and like obviously the way that Paul Rudd plays.
I was gonna say, like, it's so interesting. Like, I feel like Paul Rudd comes through so much when he plays like Scott Lang.
Yeah,
it's
even more than like Ant-Man. Like he's definitely like just Paul Rudd when he's playing Scott.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, it's just so heartwarming. You just can't help but just love it. So, yeah, so I like seeing Jimmy. I mean, it was very brief, but but I always like seeing him on screen. He always, like, it's just a good time whenever he's on screen.
And then it kind of goes into like this whole like opening monologue is essentially Scott reading from his book. He's at like a book signing, and there's a bunch of little kids. There's like obviously a few dressed up as Ant-Man, but I think I don't know if he's dressed up as the Wasp or if she's dressed up as Captain Marvel. But she has an Ant-Man mask on, but she's definitely not wearing an Ant-Man suit. So I'm pretty sure that was like a kid dressed up as Captain Marvel in there. I don't know if you caught that or not.
I must have missed it. I really am excited to go watch the movie again.
Yeah.
So.
And it's just kind of him just loving life, and you know, it's a very, you know, carefree way to start a movie that eventually gets like
very serious.
Very serious. And yeah, and then we kind of throughout the movie progresses. In the beginning, we find out that Cassie has made this quantum beacon. Essentially.
Yeah, because it sends a signal down, and that's when they all get like sucked into the quantum realm, and that's really when I think it starts to pick up.
And I guess I want to touch on that because you mentioned when we were talking about this yesterday, after you saw the movie, that you felt like that opening scene or that those opening moments felt a little slow.
Yeah, maybe just a little slow. I mean, not that that's bad. But I was just really excited for them to like get into the quantum realm. Like, you know, so I'm just like, when are they gonna get there? And yeah, so I think once they get into the quantum realm, and I mean there's a lot of mystery with Janet. Like, it's a very Janet forward story.
Yes. Oh, and that's how that's even before we get into Scott, like that's how the movie starts off. It is with Janet when she I don't think it's not when she first is in the quantum realm. But it must be like after maybe like a couple years when she's in the quantum realm, because she sees this blue, like, I don't know, like shot, like almost like a shooting star.
Looks like an asteroid or something. Like hitting.
Comes in, so she goes to try to like save or see what's going on with this, and she finds after like these battle with these weird alien creatures that there's another person there, and it's a variant of Kang, and in this story it is our Kang.
Yeah.
So she very much is very mysterious, and she hasn't told Hank or Hope about Kang at all. And
it sounds like she just doesn't really talk about her time in the quantum realm at all, really.
Yeah, and and Hope is very much like, you can talk to me, Mom. And she's like, no, I just want to enjoy it here. And you can tell that she has a lot of like just, I don't know, like anxiety about like what happened down there.
Yeah, you could definitely tell there was like some trauma.
Yeah.
Like, you know, some stuff that wasn't good that she just doesn't want to talk about.
And I think going forward, like that trauma and her keeping that in is the main reason why we have this conflict with Kang. We eventually find out that Janet's essentially befriended Kang, helped him get his energy ball thing.
Yeah, to power up his ship.
Yeah, but that's his energy source. One's connected to his ship, feeds directly to his mind. So when Janet is touching this energy source, she can see everything that's going on in Kang's mind, and she realizes that Kang didn't come here on accident. He came here on purpose. And he didn't crash land out of accident. He was here to destroy he's here to destroy worlds. And she knows that that's what Kang is going to do here. So she's trying the best that she can to not have that happen. And to the point where she even gives up the opportunity to go home. Kang tells Janet that I won't kill your universe. I won't kill your world. Like, I will take you back. But then Janet realizes, like, well, if I do that, other worlds are gonna, she's like, even says, like, how many trillions of people are going to die if I let you do this? If I get to go home and see Hope, like, how many trillions of people are going to die? And she decides no, and she then takes her Pym particles and basically destroys the energy orb, and that effectively keeps Kang and Janet in the quantum realm until Hope comes in. Hope and Hank come and save Janet. So that's kind of, that bit of information is kind of sprinkled throughout the movie, what happened. But she's very much, once she gets in there, she's like, we need to find Scott and Cassie. We need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, because she knows Kang is still in there. She knows how things ended with Kang when she, before she left. So, and she can tell because there's like a search probe or something coming through trying to find, and it's like blue lights. So like you can tell like it's Kang, and she knows it right away. So she's like, we got to stay calm. We got to stay quiet. We need to get out of here as quickly as she can because like it's about to go down.
Yeah.
And then so like you had mentioned, Hank, Janet, and Hope are kind of on their own for a little bit, and then Scott does save Cassie. He embiggens. They said that word a couple times throughout the movie, which I thought was fun. Or they didn't say throughout the movie. We saw it in like a YouTube video. He said it big in a line. I'm like, I just keep thinking Miss Marvel every time that Scott gets big. So they're kind of off on their own, and they meet a bunch of ruffians down in the quantum realm.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like it gave me a lot of Star Wars vibes. Like meeting all these different like creatures and stuff in the quantum realm. Yeah, it was just like, I don't know, like it kind of reminded me of like some like Jawas or something like creeping up. And...
So there's a scene where Janet, Hank, and Hope they see like a bunch of like people coming towards them, and Janet's like, I got this, and she goes up and like slices someone's hand off.
Oh yeah.
Like, so that scene. But there are these like pink gooey centipedes that are like crawling towards them, and then they like split apart and then kind of like circle around them.
Yeah.
And they kind of form into what looks like Rey's speeder bike.
Yeah.
From Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they have like, so like how Rey was when we first saw her in The Force Awakens, where she has like almost like mummy wraps all over her head, and she's got like thick dark glasses, and you can't see who it is. And that's how these people dress down there. So like immediately I thought that, I'm like, oh, that's Star Wars. And then this is really obscure and random, but like when those two like little gooey centipedes like came off and just started circling all of them, I thought of all of the reindeer from Frozen 2 when they finally make it out of the forest. And that's the first thing I thought of. Like, this is so weird, but like I think it's just because we just watched it not too long ago. But yeah, like these gooey pink centipedes just like racing around them, and then Janet like chops someone's arm off, and then it regrows back, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're friends now."
Yeah.
Or like we were friends before, and then Hank's just like, "What else are you not telling us?" So like their journey kind of goes off, and she's like, "I know someone." Again, she's being very mysterious. I know someone who might be able to help, and they kind of go off on their own way. But Cassie and Scott are kind of in like this like village almost.
Yeah, it's kind of like
and like I kind of remind me of, like the Ewok village in like Star Wars, where like just a bunch of like random weird creatures.
Like they all looked different, and and then they had to drink the goo stuff so that they could understand.
Drink the ooze.
Yeah, drink the ooze.
So they kind of meet like a bunch of these kind of like ragtag freedom fighters, really, that are against Kang, and these are all the people that have been displaced.
Yeah,
because
their homes. Yeah, their homes were destroyed.
Which then speaks to Cassie, because that's what she was doing at the beginning of the movie before she got put in jail. Was she was trying to help a group of homeless people from the police like shutting down their encampment because of them being displaced. So like Cassie is immediately like, we need to help these people. Like we need to do whatever we can, and that's where Scott's kind of just like, this isn't our fight. And that's kind of like the overlying issue between Scott and Cassie throughout this movie, at least the beginning. It's just Cassie just wants to fight the good fight, and that's kind of what Scott was, once he became an Avenger. But now he's just kind of like, this isn't our fight to wage. And Cassie's kind of like, well, if it's not our fight, like, then what are we doing? Like, why are you a superhero then, if you're not willing to fight for that? And she eventually convinces Scott to come around to that and fight that fight.
Yep. And you find out that she has her suit
with her. She's got a suit with her.
She's got a suit.
Which I thought was very weird. Like, she wouldn't, like, try to put it on sooner, like, when she was, like, flying through the quantum realm, because immediately...
Scott and Hope put theirs on.
Yeah. Scott, not no one immediately, but, like...
Yeah.
Hope, she put hers on. Like, she let go. Like, she was in, like, their lab or whatever. Yeah, she put it on and then went into the quantum realm. So she was the only one that went in there with, like, protection.
Yeah.
And Scott eventually got his on, but then it took like 5-10 minutes, and Cassie's maybe I should put my suit on now.
Yeah. Yeah, because they start cause there's like some bad guys that are coming.
Like Kang's kind of like minions or whatever.
Yeah.
Are coming along. So, and we find out that the person who received Cassie's kind of signal.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't actually Kang. It was MODOK. And what were your thoughts on MODOK?
Oh my gosh. So I remember hearing that MODOK was going to be in this movie, and I was like, but how? Like, he's such a weird character. Like, he's gonna, like, there's no way this is gonna work at all. Like, he's gonna stick out. The storyline's gonna be stupid. Like, it's not. Like, it's just not gonna vibe. Like, I'm gonna hate it. But knowing that he's Darren Cross, like, that's... Perfect. Like, I don't know, like, how far in advance, like, when they're writing these films, do they know that this stuff is gonna happen?
Right. Did they know in Ant-Man 1 that he was eventually going to turn into MODOK? Or is it just kind of one of those happy incidences that kind of occurred?
It just falls into place, and it works so perfectly. Because when Darren's getting like folded in on himself back into the quantum realm,
and this is in Ant-Man 1 in Cassie's room. Yep.
And you find out that he's MODOK. Like, it makes sense. Like,
because you can see, like you said, he's getting folded into the quantum realm, and like each body part is kind of being warped in as he goes. But when he finally reaches the quantum realm, it's only his legs and his arm and his body that have shrunk down. His head is the same size.
So big.
So like watching his story progress, and like, so this is something I knew going into the movie, that not only MODOK was going to be in it, but that Corey Stoll was going to be MODOK. So I knew that it was going to be Yellow Jacket was going to be MODOK. Yeah. But that was something a complete surprise to you.
It was, yeah.
And that was probably like the biggest thing that was ruined for me with this movie. I think that was probably the only thing that was really ruined for me in this movie. But just how they did it, and they kind of gave a little bit of backstory. And then, so like as MODOK's explaining it, and then all of a sudden it's just like a strict, like a cut right to Scott, and he's just like, Darren? Is that you? He's like, no, I'm MODOK. And he's like, Darren, what the hell happened to you? And even like Hank, like later on in the movie when Hank meets MODOK, like because he has like a gold face shield on that he can take off, very much like in the comics. And then when he does that, he's talking to Hank, and then Hank's just like, Darren, what the hell happened to you? And it was just kind of one of those things where they just keep making fun of him. He's like, no, I'm MODOK now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I absolutely loved the character of MODOK. I saw something afterward, like, we're just all fans living in MODOK's world now. I think it was hilarious. Like, he's very, like, MODOK in the comics is very cartoony. It's very comic-y. Like, it's one of those things, like, you don't think that they can really, like, translate well to the MCU. And like, we've had an example of that where they've had a very cartoony-ish character or comic booky character, and how they did in the MCU was like way different. Was Arnim Zola from like the first Cap movie to the second Cap movie, where he's just like this huge computer system in this basement at a bunker in an old military facility. And like I can tell like what they were going with Arnim Zola, but like it looks way different because Zola in the movies or in the comics is like he's like a belt like along the belly button, and it's like a weird looking head, and then it's like this goopy pink monster character above and below it. So like you can't like they didn't do that. They didn't translate that to the MCU. But then MODOK, they went full on like it's very comic accurate.
I was gonna say like he looks like from what I've seen. Like,
yeah, so I was very pleased with that translation into the MCU. There was just a lot of weird stuff in the quantum realm in general, especially like the oozy pink goopy guy.
Yeah, with the holes.
With how many holes do you have?
Holes do you have?
and then the telepath, I forget his name. He's played by the guy from that was in
The Good Place.
The Good Place.
Chidi.
Chidi, yeah.
I can't think of his
real name.
Yeah. Sorry.
And he's like, oh, he's got 7, and Scott's like,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. and then so I'm sitting because I've seen that in like in the trailers, because you don't watch the trailers or like any ads or anything. You'll watch like maybe one.
Yeah, maybe watch like one trailer.
So like I was like, wait, like, and then in my mind I'm counting like, how many holes do I have? And then I'm like, oh yeah, they are right. So like it was very weird place to be with these weird characters, and it just. Like that's what you expect in a place like the quantum realm, and I think that's why it gives us such like these Star Wars vibes. Yeah, because like Star Wars is just a fanatical, weird place like that.
Right. I do have like one question though. Like, where do these people come from?
I don't know,
and they don't really address that. Like, how do they get into the quantum realm?
I don't. So, like in Loki, which will. Talk about Loki in a little bit here, but in Loki, when the TVA has their staffs and they like prune the people, they get thrown into like this like catch-all place.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's what happens when Kang like zaps them. Like they're not dead; they just go into like this weird like collection universe.
Maybe, and maybe some of them just get sent to the quantum realm.
But I think that's. That collection universe is in the quantum realm. I don't think it's the quantum realm in general, because like he has all those like minions with like you don't get to see their faces or whatever, but they're like big blue shields almost.
Yeah,
and like they are sentient, like they can talk and they do know and take commands and everything. So I'm wondering if like those are like the people that he is like pretty much imprisoned, and then. You know, like when he's blasting, because there's these really cool scenes where like Kang is like just screaming on an agony with all of his power, and he's just like blasting people into like nothingness. I wonder if those people just get transported to like in an imprisonment camp or something.
Yeah,
and then he like turns them into his like his army, because he's got an army. Yeah. He's got a huge army, like probably something to like kind of go up against Thanos almost, and like all of his Chitauri.
Yeah,
like it's like that size level of army that he's got going on. Now, granted, like this is all in a micro universe.
It's like it's in the quantum realm. So,
but I mean, if he can get all that out of the quantum realm, which I feel like we'll eventually get to in Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars, but I think like he does show that he has this ability. But like all these characters are just so weird. But yeah, I don't really know like how everyone gets in. But I'm like,
yeah, because they definitely don't address that in the movie.
Like if Scott and Cassie and all them, if they can get into the microverse or to the microverse, into the quantum realm and out of the quantum realm, other people must be able to do that too. Like they can't be the only ones.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, obviously, it's not like super easy like to do that. But yeah. So speaking of like other characters, I know we knew going into this movie that Bill Murray was going to be in it, and we were kind of, at least I was just like, that's an interesting choice. Like, what kind of character is he gonna play? And it was a pretty minor character.
It was a very minor character. I think his character in the movie kind of characters him in real life.
Yeah.
I know that he has been dealing with a lot of criticism lately, rightfully so. So Kylar, he plays a character named Kylar. He was basically, a freedom fighter alongside Janet when she was in the quantum realm for so many years. It kind of sounds like they had a little bit more than just a working relationship.
She did say she had needs. So.
She's got needs. Yeah, that was a weird scene. So like Hank's in there, he's like, I have needs too, and Hope's just like, shut up, guys. I don't want to hear it. It's her parents talking about like having sex with other people, and like, so like, yeah,
awkward.
It was very awkward. So yeah, it sounds like she might have had more of a romantic relationship at one point with this Kylar, and this is the person that's, Janet's like, if there's one person that's going to know where Scott and Cassie are, this is it. So like they meet him, and he's a very eccentric type of guy.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of, oh my gosh, Thor Ragnarok, what's his
Jeff
name?
Goldblum's character?
Yeah.
The Collector? No. God, what is his name?
What's his name?
We'll figure it out.
But he reminds me of him.
Yeah.
Like that personality.
Yeah. And so with that, and I also picked up, and we watched this in a YouTube video kind of recapping stuff last night too. I picked it up right away that he reminded me of Lando Calrissian from Star Wars. Again, another Star Wars reference to this movie that, he was a good friend of Han's for a while, and then, he turns his back and kind of lets in the enemy.
Yeah.
And he's like, he could be very persuasive, which is almost kind of what Lando said, in Star Wars, where he's just kind of like, well, I had no choice.
Didn't he say like they got there first or something?
Yeah. So it's very much the same line of like, it's a Lando type of character where Janet seeks out Kylar for help, but then Kylar brings Kang and his minions to them, so that way, Kang is getting what he wants. Kang, in this movie, his main goal is to get Janet and Scott, because they would know how to basically undo what Janet did to his power source.
Yep, so that
they could restore it so he can get out of the quantum realm, so he can keep on going on doing his conquering.
Yep.
I guess this is a good time to talk about, like, what are your thoughts of Kang in general and Jonathan Majors?
Love Jonathan Majors. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think do I know anything that he's been in that I would have seen before this? Because
I don't think so.
Yeah, if not, this is a fabulous introduction to him, because he just kills it. Like his looks, like with his eye, like his facial expressions, like I don't know, like how you just go from like one look to the next, and like you just going from like, I don't know, like I'm gonna kill you, to be like, okay, we can make a deal kind of thing.
Yeah, you could. Like, he's very much like he flips back and forth depending on what he's doing, but like you can tell that there's anguish. You can tell that there is, there is a drive that he needs to get this done. He is a very stubborn but persistent, and like I think going forward, we're going to see him be on the same lines of Loki, with how like everyone just loved Loki. Like, even though he was the villain, like Loki is such a beloved character, and he's a character that everyone loves to hate because of his motives. But he's such a good character. Not a good character, but he's played so well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Tom Hiddleston, like, I don't think you can, like, no one else could play Loki like the way that he does. And I think that's what we're going to get with Jonathan Major in Kang. Like, you can't, there's no one else that's going to be able to play Kang as well as Jonathan Majors.
He just knocks it out of the park. Like, he just, like, he soars. Like, he's literally just, like, he's transcended, like, I feel, like, the typical Marvel, like, actor. Like, he is that role to a T, and he can bring so much, just like, I'm speechless. It literally makes me speechless how good he is.
Yeah, he's gonna bring a lot to this next, these next phases of the MCU, and I think that's where like Marvel just really shines I would say most of the time, is in their character casting.
Mhm.
Like, because they get the right people for these characters, and they just do a phenomenal job. And it just makes, like, the storytelling that they're doing, they just bring it more to life. And
Mhm.
and I think that's what really sets Marvel apart from a lot of other superhero movies.
Are you throwing some shade at DC?
Never.
Since we're talking about Jonathan Majors, what did you think about Cassie?
I really liked her. I know she's not the original girl that played, like, Cassie, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize that until after kind of like reading into a little bit more. Yeah. They recasted her from like Cassie from Endgame.
Yeah. No, I really liked her. I thought she did a really good job, and I'm really excited to see where her character is going to go. I know we've talked about it before, kind of setting up like a young Avengers kind of thing, and I think obviously she would place really well on that team.
Yeah. I mean, and especially with Phase 4, like, we've gotten so many of these characters now kicking off Phase 5. Like, so we've got Cassie, we now have Ironheart, so we've got the Ant-Man, we've got Iron Man. We know that Hulk has a son.
Yes.
So we have like our Hulk replacement.
Kate Bishop.
So we got our Hawkeye replacement. We've got Yelena. So we've got our Black Widow replacement. And then Thor. I mean, we don't have like a full-on replacement, but Thor's character can definitely still come back and continue on. Like, they didn't, close the door on Thor, but he also has a daughter, Love. So, Thor's kind of like separate out there. Like, so if we don't get Thor, we do have other characters. Like, we have Miss Marvel.
Yes.
Would be a character that could easily integrate in here. And then to kind of tie in with the Avengers that we already have, like, we still have Cap with Sam Wilson. We have Spider-Man still in the fold here. So, like, if it's not like their own separate young Avengers, like, a lot of these characters could come in and serve their purpose as, members of the Avengers. Or I don't want to say a replacement, because you're not going to be able to replace, like, Scarlett Johansson's Widow or Tony Stark's Iron Man. But, they do serve their purpose as kind of like, they're kind of like pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, and I know we kind of mentioned that before, but, like, I guess who are the Avengers right now? Like, we don't really know, do we?
To be honest, I don't think that there really is an Avengers, because there's no, like, because the Avengers compound is, like, disintegrated after Thanos, right?
Yeah. Because I don't think they've showed, like, there's been no news of, like, a rebuild or anything. Not that we've seen yet. And, like,
but Scott does mention in here, like, hey, if the Avengers do come calling, like, I'll be there.
Yeah.
So the only two characters I can think of that are, like, for sure still on the Avengers would be Cap and Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Which isn't really an Avengers team. And then I didn't even think about it. Like, we have She-Hulk.
Yeah,
too.
She-Hulk.
So She-Hulk can kind of fit in for that role of Hulk as well. I think she'll probably fit in better to replace Hulk's role than Hulk's son. So, like, Hulk's son could be, on the Young Avengers, but then She-Hulk could be on, like, the main Avengers, which I think would be really, really cool. So, yeah, we've kind of unknown territory right now with what's actually going on with the Avengers, or if they're a thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know when we're going to see, because the next movie we have is Guardians, and that's going to kind of
wrap up
their story. And then the Marvels.
Yep.
Which,
I feel like they're kind of like their own little team right now. Yeah. They're not really affiliated with, I mean, obviously Captain Marvel is affiliated with the Avengers, but the other two really aren't. But I feel like the one person that we did gain that we know for sure is an Avenger is Darren Cross.
MODOK.
Again,
I'm an Avenger now.
I'm an Avenger now, and then Scott's just like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're dying anyway. Wouldn't it be funny if, like, he actually didn't die in that scene?
Oh my gosh,
and then
he actually does
comes
come back,
and then like in like Kang Dynasty or whatever, like a different version of MODOK comes back. He's like, I'm an
my
Avenger
gosh.
now. And then like Cap's just like, 1, who the hell are you? And 2, you're not an Avenger. And he's like, no. Like Ant-Man made me an Avenger.
Ant-Man said it was okay.
Ant-Man and Wasp both said I'm an Avenger now.
Oh my god.
But yeah, like that was, and I think Cassie's like interaction with him, like throughout, as kind of towards the end, where because Darren Cross, like he's just been a dick.
Yeah,
like in the first movie, like he was very much like that way. And then Cassie's like, there's always time to not be a dick. Like you can just don't be a dick. And he eventually does just not be a dick. He kind of sacrifices himself to help this the ants defeat Kang. Well, defeat his energy orb shield thing. And he kind of goes out in this blaze of glory, and he's just like, Scott, I always considered you a friend, and he's just like our brother. And Scott's just like that feeling is not reciprocated,
right?
He's like, I can die an Avenger, and just Scott's like, sure, buddy. Can we talk about MODOK's butt?
Oh my god! Sure, let's talk about MODOK's little butt.
So like you get like his kind of like becoming of montage story.
Yeah.
And it very much felt like the making of Darth Vader.
I was kind of thinking like Voldemort, like when they're in the graveyard and then he comes back up, and like it was kind of like him being like reborn again.
So you see basically Corey Stoll's character, Darren Cross, be reborn. And they pick him up by his head out of this pool, and you just see this.
And he's in like the MODOK form, so he has like his big head, his little arms, his little legs.
But he still has his body because you see his little butt, his little chubby cheeks. My God, that was just so weird. Sorry, but and then now we get to towards the end of the film, and you kind of have like 2 different things going on. Kang has basically, I don't know if you want to say like positioned Scott or like kind of forced Scott to like go along with his plan.
Right.
So Scott's just like, what do you need me to do? And Scott's like, I need you to steal, or Kang's like, I need you to steal something from me. I need you to go down into this energy orb. I need you to essentially shrink it back down to size.
Right now, like it's huge and like out of control.
I need you to shrink it back down to size and then bring it to me. And then I will release Cassie and she'll be fine. So he's going on and doing that, while Hank, Janet, and Hope are kind of dealing with trying to get out of the mess that Kylar set them up into to get back to the Cassie and Scott.
Yeah.
As they're flying, Hope hears Scott. So they have some communication. So then Hope kind of goes off and helps Scott down in like an even more quantum realm.
Yeah, I forget what because
there's different levels of the quantum realm.
Yeah. So basically, like when Scott's down there, he starts what do they say? Possibilities?
Yes, it's like a possibility.
It's like all So then he starts
probability.
Probability, yeah. So he basically just starts like replicating himself in all like these different like probability Scotts that like could happen or something. Yeah.
So he essentially got down. So in his mission, what he's doing in this at this time, he's down. He sees the center core of the energy, and he basically needs to throw his PIM particles on it to shrink it down.
Yeah.
And as he's moving, that's when he starts replicating because he's in a probability storm.
Yep.
So every time he moves or he makes a different decision, another Ant-Man pops out, and then another Ant-Man pops out, to the point where like it's just a whole like sea of Ant-Men.
Yeah.
And you caught on this reference as well as I did almost immediately.
Yeah.
It's like Wreck-It Ralph 2.
Yes, yeah. When you get all of the Ralphs at the end, and he's like, what does he say, friend or something?
Yeah, and so like then they all kind of form this big Ralph. But in this movie, they're all working like ants.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Ant-Man the Ant.
Yeah.
Man. And so they eventually, it kind of seems like they're starting to turn on one another because like no one knows like who like the real Ant-Man is.
Yeah.
And then you get Jake from Baskin Robbins.
Baskin Robbins, and he's in his Baskin Robbins gear.
And he's like, why am I here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, why are you here? But he is a probability of Scott's character. And so they eventually like start to like almost like suffocate him because they're trying to like figure out like who the best aunt is. It's kind of how I took it. And then that's when Hope can hear Scott, but then also they can hear Cassie because Cassie has broken out and she's trying to help this rebellion at Kang's Tower. And Scott can hear this, but all the other Scotts can hear this.
Yeah, and I think that's like really important because that's how Scott got out of the quantum realm in the first movie was by hearing Cassie's voice.
Yes.
And and just a lot of his character just revolves around like
trying to do the best for Cassie.
Doing the best for Cassie. And that's the one thing that they could all agree on was to like find Cassie or like help Cassie or whatever. Like they could hear her and that's what they were doing.
And it kind of gave me vibes from like Multiverse of Madness. Like in every universe, like they still all love Cassie. And I love you in every universe. I love you in every universe. Like in every probability of Scott's existence, it always revolves around Cassie. So when they realize that the main Scott, our Scott, is trying to do this for Cassie, they all decide to not suffocate him and drown him, but like help him up. And they're all helping him up
building
this huge
like this big
anthill.
Yeah, anthill so that he can get up close enough to the
orb
energy
orb
field. So he can like throw the pin particles and then like and he throws one like does absolutely nothing. And then pretty soon Hope comes in. And
even as she's coming in, she has all the different probabilities behind her too. So they're all like fighting with her as she's flying down. But when they come together, I think that was a really cool scene where no matter how many different probabilities or possibilities there were with these characters, they all would come together as just one singular motive to help Cassie. And that's what they were doing. So once all of the Wasps and the Ant-Men realize this, they all not shrink down, but they all kind of merge back into like the one singular Wasp and Ant-Man. And that's when the two of them, they can just start shooting pin particles at this orb to get that energy orb down into
normal size.
But then unfortunately, even though they have that and Kang gets it, Kang goes back on his word, keeps Cassie imprisoned. Well, she's not imprisoned anymore, but he doesn't give her back. And he orders his minions, his army, to go find Cassie and kill her, while he's going to essentially take out Scott and Hope. So then that kind of leads up to this final big battle scene between Cassie trying to lead this rebellion and lead everyone to the tower from all these weird ruffian characters that they've met throughout the film, and anyone basically who's been displaced by Kang. She's like, come here, like we can beat him, like he's got a weakness. And I think that's this was a very climactic part of the movie. I really enjoyed this part of the movie.
I feel like the build up to it was really good. Like it didn't like it wasn't slow, it wasn't rushed. Like I feel like it was just an overall like really good build up to this.
The pace was very I feel was very good for this scene once they got into the quantum realm.
Because on the other hand, like you have Hank, you discovered that his aunts from the beginning of the movie,
which we see get sucked into the quantum realm,
sucked in there. Like he's kind of off trying to like rally them up.
And those aunts, we find out basically get sucked further in through the quantum realm. So they've been there longer, essentially. So they've lived a lot longer to the point where they have like become their own functioning society.
Like they've built up like their own like city or like
like they're so like technologically advanced than the ants that they even had in the lab, which were already like building their own like structures and everything, to the point where they come and they sense Hank and they come back for him. And Hank has this really cool moment where like it kind of seems like all is not, and like everything's just gonna like we're gonna lose this fight to Kang. But then like these huge giant ants just come through and like just start terrorizing the city and beating up on all of Kang's army. And it's just Michael Douglas's Hank just there like controlling them all with his earpiece in his mind. And he's just like, I like ants. I like ants.
I love that so much because like I said in the beginning, like this is very much an Ant-Man film. And I think when you say Ant-Man, you think Scott Lang. But then you get Hank and him being like his own Ant-Man.
It was very nice to see like him, and then even as well as like Michelle Pfeiffer's Wasp, like have their own moments in this film where like you get to see like more of like Janet's time in the quantum realm, and you get to see like her being like a really badass fighter. Like even like current Janet, like being, you know, the older Janet, like you get to see her like have so much fun like just beating up and like kicking ass when they're like having that fight with Kylar at that like bougie bar area or whatever.
Yeah.
So like it was very cool to see like more of these characters fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I will say we didn't get a whole lot of that with Hope's character, but I feel like we got some of that with the second movie. So like we did get a little bit, you know, fleshed out with her, but like this was really cool to see. Like, yes, it's an Ant-Man and the Wasp, but like which Ant-Man? Like this is you got a really cool storyline with Hank, and that's where I was kind of like expecting to see Hank die in this movie, like at this final battle, like where he comes out and like he has this like really baller move when he just like, I've got all these ants and like never underestimate the ant. And always look out for the little guy. He's like, there's always room to grow. And then Paul's like, you read my book. And then Hank's like, every damn word.
I love it.
You know, but that whole final scene was cool. There was a lot of like cool references we picked up in that.
Yeah, when Scott is huge, like huge, and he's just like going and he's just smashing this city.
Because he's like, Kang!
Yeah.
I'm here for you. Come out. And then you picked on this immediately.
I literally whispered to you, and I'm like, May
May! We got a Turning Red reference in there.
It was like so spot on. Like,
it was.
I don't know like how you could not like just not see it, because May's mom is so huge and she's wrecking this city and she's just calling out May, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like the same thing.
And then there was a scene where like Scott picks up part of like the Citadel. I think it's part of the Citadel area where Kang's like, you know, fortress is at, and it's this huge like circular like platform, and he's using it like Cap's shield, and like I immediately thought like he loves Cap so much, like he's gonna replicate and like what Cap does. And I thought that was so cool that he used that as a shield, and he's like he's literally like trying to jar open like Kang's force field with it, and he's using it just like it looked like Cap in his shield. I'm like, that's such a Scott thing to do.
It is.
So I thought that was really, really cool. And then when the ants come out, like you can kind of sense like you just see an ant, and then there's a lot of ants in there. They're all just coming out. I thought of like the On Your Left.
Yep.
So like I just think of like Mike, or like it's like a portal opening up, but then Hank coming out, and like it's like Chadwick Boseman and like the Black Panther when he's coming out.
Yeah.
And then you hear Sam saying On Your Left, and then all the ants come out.
Oh, like it was such a good build up, and then you have like the ants coming in at the end, like because it's Ant-Man, and like I feel like in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second one, like there wasn't a lot of like ant references, or there wasn't as much emphasis on like the ants. So that was really nice to see them play such a big part, and I think to see Hank come out as like his own Ant-Man was just really, really cool.
So like, and then in that same scene, in that same battle, we find that not only did Hank come out with all these ants, but the message was definitely well received. Cassie's message out to the entire quantum realm was received
Yep.
because all these other characters that we've met
Mhm.
before, especially like the people that were displaced from Kang, they all come out and they receive Cassie's message and they
Yeah.
help out in this fight. And there's this huge, like, overall just big, like, battle at his citadel. And I thought about that and I'm just like, they got it. It wasn't like a direct reference to like Guardians, but when Peter Quill's like, oh, they got my dick message. Like, I kind of thought about that, and then I'm just like, oh, Cassie did have her own dick message in this movie, so like it kind of makes sense.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it was kind of like when Korg was trying to rally like his
But his revolution failed because he didn't bring enough pamphlets.
Yeah, I know, but it just like it reminded me of him like trying to build his revolution, and then like Cassie like building hers.
I turned to you and I'm just like, this is what would have happened if Korg had enough pamphlets.
Enough pamphlets.
So the movie eventually comes to a close where it seems like Kang has been defeated to the point they break his energy orb to the point where it doesn't seem like it's going to work anymore. And Cassie and Janet uses his throne area and figures out, I have one shot to get us back home. Yep. I can get us back through the same portal that they came into.
Yeah.
And opens up this another portal to get back home, and they all start walking through it, and it's at the end it's just Cassie and Scott, but then Scott sees that Kang is getting up.
Yeah.
So he pushes Cassie through the portal, but he doesn't go through it. He stays back and he starts fighting.
He doesn't want Kang to go through.
Because he doesn't want Kang to go through. Because Kang sees his opportunity. He's like, I'm gonna go in there.
Yep.
This is my way out. It's like I can rebuild everything as long as I'm out of the quantum realm.
Yeah.
So then that leads to a pretty violent fight between Kang and Ant-Man.
Yeah, like I couldn't believe like getting like this one-on-one fight, like Kang Ant-Man, like it was because like like through the fight Kang like smashes his helmet, like, and it's like he has to take it off because like he can't, like it's useless. And Scott gets pretty like he gets up,
bloodied up bad. And I saw this was like San Diego Comic-Con, I think, when they first came out and like had like the entire cast of Ant-Man. They had production shirts and it had Scott's helmet on it with the broken helmet on it, because like it's this whole like basically right side of his face is like broken off on it. And they had it on the production and it was like, this is gonna be like pretty intense. But then finally seeing that scene, and it's just like so like Jonathan Majors is gonna be in the new Creed movie where he plays like this like this villain boxer or whatever. Yeah. So I'm just kind of like, you could tell like he took like his training from Creed for this, because like he is swole and he's just beating the shit out of Ant-Man. Yeah. And I'm just like, he's gonna kill him. He's not gonna make it out. And I think like a lot of people thought like a version of Ant-Man wasn't a version of Scott, I should say, wasn't going to make it out of this movie. I heard that a lot, like Scott's gonna die in this movie, and that's where I kind of thought like going in like someone's gonna die. But I'm just like he's gonna die, like this is it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I don't have to win, you just have to lose. We just both have to lose. And essentially that seemed what was gonna happen too, because Hope came out, or Hope came back through the portal and basically helps shoot away Kang to the point where Scott could get up, and then they both shot him into that energy orb that was so crucial to Kang's success.
Yeah. Essentially undoing what they just did.
And then Kang gets sucked into this energy orb.
Yeah.
And it seems like he loses, but I don't know if he really does.
Yeah, and I think that's, and I obviously that's, I think that's what the movie wanted. Like it wanted to keep us guessing. Yeah. And I very much like that, because there's going to be more Kang.
Right.
But it's just like where, when, how, like how is this? And that's what I really liked about this movie, like just like the questions and the theories and like what we can talk about and like the anticipation, like it's like starting. It's definitely starting, is. And I love that feeling.
Mm-hmm. And then to to finally bring it kind of back to how it started. So you have Kang. He gets put into that energy orb, not to be seen again. Where is he? I don't know. Maybe he's going to be another version of MODOK. We have Kang MODOK.
Oh gosh.
And it kind of seems like because the portal's gone, it blew up or whatever.
Yeah, because Hope and Scott get back in safe, and
they're safe, and you know, I mean, they're in the quantum realm, but they're safe because Kang's not there anymore. But then the reason that Cassie built this quantum,
right.
You know, signal in the first place was to be able to find Scott if they ever got lost in there again.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to pull it back up.
Yep.
And she opened the portal back up, and Scott and Hope were able to safely get out of the quantum realm, reunite with their family, and have like a perfect ending. They tied a nice little bow on to that, and said, "Here you go." And that's my criticism.
Yeah, I know.
I wanted them to be either stuck in the quantum realm, which I was reading this morning. I told you like a couple weeks ago that the script for Quantumania was like leaked.
Yes.
I'm wondering if this was a reshoot, because what if they were supposed to be stuck in the quantum realm and that's not how the movie ended, but then they had to very quickly change it because the script got leaked. But regardless, I wanted like a cliffhanger ending. Yeah. I wanted like how Ant-Man and the Wasp ended, where like everyone gets dusted and Scott's stuck in the quantum realm. Mm-hmm. Not that I really wanted 2 movies in a row where Scott is stuck in the quantum realm with no like seemingly way out of it, especially because we know Cassie built this signal device to save him in this situation. But I wanted some sort of, I don't know, just something,
some kind of cliffhanger,
or some illusion. Like I had texted you what I thought was going to happen in this movie.
Yeah,
was I thought that they were all going to get back out of the quantum realm, but Kang was going to too. And because of how long they were in the quantum realm, time on Earth had passed for so long, and Kang was already started his Kang dynasty. So like I thought the end of this movie was going to be the beginning of Avengers Kang dynasty. Like that's how I thought this was going to end. And then so everything that we get between now and like 3 years from now in all these movies is just going to be leading up to like figuring out where we ended off at Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And then that Avengers movie was going to be going forward. So like everything these next phase 5 or the rest of phase 5 and part of phase 6 was all going to be what happens between now and the end of Quantumania. So you had your bookends. That's how I thought this movie was going to end. So like you knew how it was going to get there, but you didn't know how it was going to get there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like I just am expecting to have like some sort of like big cliffhanger moment, and we haven't had that like in an MCU movie in a while.
Yeah.
But like that's just kind of what I was hoping to get out of this movie, just because we knew that Kang is going to be a force to be reckoned with further going into the phase 5 and phase 6. So I'm not disappointed by it. It's just I was hoping for something like that, so that way there's something like to keep me salivated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, I understand that, I guess, but at the same, like, I guess I don't really feel that way.
And that's fine.
Yeah, like I like how it ended. Like I said before, I feel like it's getting us talking and anticipating and kind of wondering where Kang is going to come up next. So I like how it ended. And obviously, like with the technology that Cassie built in the beginning of the movie, like her purpose was to be able to find people in the quantum realm. So I think people being lost in the quantum realm just really isn't going to be like a thing.
Right.
And yeah, so I don't know. And this is like our first really big introduction of Kang. And I don't think they wanted to like put that bar so high, especially for like an Ant-Man movie. So I think it's probably appropriate that he didn't, as far as we know, get out. I mean, I know they're like I'm
going under the assumption that he did not get out, but he's not dead. I feel like this version of Kang is still available for use.
Available for use. But you get Scott questioning himself at the end of the movie.
He's even just like, did I actually win this?
Yeah. So I like that because then it just kind of builds questions in us as fans and coming up with our crazy theories as to what's going to happen next. And,
Yeah.
and that's what I really love about these movies.
And I told you yesterday, like, I almost thought, like, once they got out of the quantum realm and Scott's having, like, his, like, carefree day, like, everything's back to normal. I was kind of hoping, like as he was walking along, like, just little bits would start to change. Like, all of a sudden he'd turn up and see, like, a billboard, and there's, like, Kang's pictures on the billboard.
Yeah.
Or, like, he'd go in and he would, bypass a store, had a TV, and, like, the TV was talking about Kang. Or, like, he looked down and I think there was, like, a little stroller with a dog and, like, little bassinet.
Yeah.
He looked down and, like, maybe it was a baby, but the baby's face looked like Kang. So, like, maybe and that's how it ended. And I think that would have been a good cliffhanger ending for me. Like, oh, everything's fine. Shit, no, wait, all these Kangs are, like, popping up all over the place. But like I said, like, it doesn't need to be like that, and it still planted the seeds, and it still planted the possibilities of, like, what can come from Kang going forward. Yeah.
So, and I think I know, like, the ending was, like, your criticism of the movie. I think my criticism is, how does time actually work in the quantum realm? Because it seems very contradictory, and I don't like it. It's kind of like the whole time travel thing.
And you've always had an issue with the time travel thing.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know. So you get Janet, who was lost down there for 30 years. And she ages as much as Hank does. Like, when she comes back to him, like, they've aged, like, just as much, or she has aged just as much as he has.
And Hope has as well.
Yeah, and Hope has as well. But then they always say, like, well, it works differently down there. So, like, I don't really understand that, because, like, when Scott is stuck in the quantum realm during the snap, like, he said it was only, like, 5 hours for him. But then when he comes back up, it was 5 years. So I don't understand. Like, it was seemingly like 30 for 30 with Janet. Like, it was 30 years in the quantum realm and 30 years up on Earth. But then when Scott was down there, it was 5 hours, and then he comes back, it was 5 years. And then they didn't really address how much time they were in the quantum realm during this movie. And then when they come back up, it kind of seems like no time has really passed. So I don't know if I'm missing something, or if that's just something that it's like a plot hole. I don't really know, and I don't like it, because they obviously, like, time travel and time spent in the quantum realm and all that is, like, obviously a huge deal with these, especially the later movies, and I just, like, I need it to make sense.
Yeah. And I've thought about this, and the only thing I can think of is there's two things. So one, when Scott was trapped in the quantum realm for 5 hours, but it was actually 5 years on Earth. Look at where in the quantum realm he was trapped. He was floating in, like, this, like, weird celestial space glitter, because they were trying to, like, get, particles.
Yeah.
So, like, he wasn't in a part, like, let's say, where Janet was when we first meet her at the beginning of this movie, or even where Janet meets Hank in Ant-Man and the Wasp. When he goes down to save her. Like, I feel like there's different levels of which I can kind of see, because obviously, like, when Scott is, like, going, like, all the probabilities or whatever, like, that's like a different, like, part. So I think that they're not only, so there's the quantum realm, but there's different levels of the quantum realm. And I think where Scott was stuck between Ant-Man and the Wasp and Avengers Endgame, where he was stuck kind of in that in between, I think that's where time definitely works a lot different from either place.
Okay.
That's the only explanation that I can think of, is that because he wasn't, like, so there was, like, nothing really around him. It was all this just celestial space stuff around him. And then when you see Hank and Janet reunite in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they are on a solid-ish ground, but everything is still wonky and moving, and it's still very, like, it's very glittery and bright, and everything's just feels very fluid there. And then you see what it looks like now throughout the course of this movie. Like, it looks like a solid ground. Like there are things moving, but it's not like very like glittery and sparkly and very bright and fluid. It doesn't look like kind of like how like sunlight reflects over like waving water. It can almost looks like sparkles.
Yeah.
Like that's how like the first two kind of instances of the quantum realm we've seen those two in. So I think depending on what layer you're in the quantum realm, that's where time starts to get a little bit wonky. So now where Janet was, everything seemed as normal as it can be for being in the quantum realm, like visually wise. Like that's where it's like 1 day is 1 day, 1 hour is 1 hour. Mm-hmm. But where Scott was, he wasn't quite as deep into the quantum realm where he was trying to get those particles.
Sure.
So that's where he was, because he was essentially just floating. There was no ground. There was no nothing there. That's the only thing I can think of that would.
Because otherwise, it is a plot hole, right?
I would, if you accept my thought on it, then it's not a plot hole.
Yeah.
But if it's quantum realm, it's quantum realm, and you go by time works differently down there, but you have Janet who's going down for 30 years and she ages 30 years, then it's not. Then yes, it is a plot hole.
Yeah. I need answers, Marvel. I need to know these things because in my mind it doesn't make as much sense as it should. So,
and again, too, so that's where I thought, like, coming out of this movie, we were going to be so far off in the future that we were going to be at Kang's.
And I don't know, maybe we are, and they just didn't. I don't know, maybe it's going to come up later.
And I don't think that we have gone into the future because the characters that we meet at the beginning of the movie remember Scott just as is. They don't mention, oh, it's been so long since we've seen you.
No, but they do treat him differently because remember, like in the beginning, like when he was getting his coffee for free and like now he has to pay for it.
Yes,
like,
because
so there are like some changes.
But I think it's because that old guy was told, like, hey, that's not Spider-Man. And he's like, oh, well, it's not Spider-Man, then he's got to pay for it. But like the Baskin-Robbins manager, like, he doesn't act any differently. He's still very much true. Like thankful for Scott and what he's done. So like he if there was something where like we went 5 years, or not 5 years, but like let's say 2 years into the future, because like 5 hours is 5 years.
Yeah.
So if this is a 2 hour movie, we've gone 2 years into the future. Like that was my thought process on it. If that were the case, then I don't think someone like the Baskin-Robbins manager would have just not addressed that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the other issue of the time travel is that Cassie sent the signal from her device and they entered the quantum realm from her device, and they also exited the quantum realm from her device. So it's kind of the same thing like in Avengers Endgame when they're on that portal.
Yeah.
They enter through the time travel stream to get to wherever they need to, and they exit back through that same portal. So time hasn't changed. And I think that's where we probably should be focusing on. As long as you're coming in and out of the same portal where it originated from, then you shouldn't have an issue. But then that's a plot hole to what the van was in Ant-Man and the Wasp Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second one, and Endgame. They enter the portal and leave that portal from the machine in the...
Well, yeah, but then it also doesn't... Because that doesn't make sense either, I don't think, because...
You don't make sense.
No, because Cap, in Endgame, when he goes to return all the stones, he goes back on, like, the portal thing that Bruce made, Smart Hulk or whatever, and he comes back on it, but now he's old Cap. So he messed up, like, with the timeline or something somewhere in there.
I think that's just Cap messing with the timeline for his own personal gain. Which I'm fine with because he got Peggy.
I know, but I really struggle with that because like he gets to see Peggy.
I know that's one of your biggest critiques, especially out of like the end of Phase 3 and Phase 4, is just like you hate the time travel.
Yeah.
And like I'm more or less like it was gonna happen. Like they're doing their best and they aren't retconning things like the X-Men did for years and years and years. So like I'm okay with like having these questions as long as like it's not like, I guess, ruining the movies for me, because it's not. But like I know
it doesn't. I guess it doesn't ruin the movie. It makes me question them because it makes me feel like because Cap messed with the timeline in Endgame, it makes it seem like all the other movies wouldn't have happened how they happened. But I don't know. So I guess it just ruins Endgame for me, and that's why I don't like it as much. Anyways, that's not what we're discussing. But kind of, because it goes along like the time travel thing. And how does time travel work? How does time work in the quantum realm versus on Earth? Because it's...
I mean, but you also have to admit that, like, when they go into the quantum realm, they're not time traveling.
No, it's not time traveling.
I mean, they eventually try to use it for time travel in Endgame, but, like, for the purpose of this movie, they're not using it for time travel.
No, I understand that. It just brings it all up. So
so you're being very critical of the time traveling aspect of these movies. And it seems like there was a lot of people that are very critical of this movie in general.
Yeah, I don't know, like, critics just being critics. I don't know.
Yeah. It very much surprised me. Like, by no means do we think this is the best MCU movie. I do think it is a higher seated movie for me.
I think, I was gonna say, of all the movies that we've seen in the last year, it's definitely one of the better ones for me.
Yeah.
Like, I like it more than Multiverse of Madness. I like it more than Thor: Love and Thunder.
Me too.
I don't think I like it quite as much as Wakanda Forever.
No.
So.
But this is definitely this is a strong movie for me. I do very much enjoy it. I don't understand why or how the critics, like the official, like, top critics or whatever, especially from what you see on, like, Rotten Tomatoes, I don't understand how, like, they're so, like, they hate this movie. It almost seems like I saw one review where it literally said, "This is Marvel's worst movie," and I'm like, have you seen Thor 2? Have you seen The Eternals? Like, there are much worse films than this one. Like, I don't understand, like, I guess how much hate it is. And I don't know if it's where, like, the critics are just, like, Marvel fatigued, where they're just kind of like, this Marvel thing has to end. Yeah. So, like, we're just going to review bomb it to the point where, like,
we're just going to destroy them.
They question it and they don't like it. Or, Marvel, just can't make any more movies because we just convinced enough people that they don't like this movie. We're going to
destroy them from the inside. We're going to make all the fans hate them.
But then, like, but that's a thing. Like, the fans generally do like this movie. Yeah, it's sitting at, like, an 80 plus. I think it's an 84 on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Yep. I very much along line that I agree with around that same rating here for this movie. And I talked to you yesterday when we were, discussing this out on our walk, that I think that they're starting to feel what DC felt when they were starting to try to, like, when they were putting out, like, the first Superman and Wonder Woman and some of, like, these first movies, especially, like, with Batman versus Superman. Like, the fans that liked it. The people that didn't were the majority in their case. But I feel like this is kind of the opposite, where the majority of fans really do like this film, and I think it's the critics that are the loudest that are getting the most pull, that are getting the most traction with what they're saying. So, like, if you have someone saying, like, this is Marvel's worst movie ever, like, no, it's not. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. Like, it's a good movie. Like, I would even consider it a great movie at some points. Yeah. Like, it's gonna get a pretty decent rating for me at the end here. And it's just, I don't know if, like, critics are just trying to, like, shoot down Marvel the way that they shot down seemingly everything that DC did for, like, a while there. I don't know. I don't get the hate behind it.
I don't either. I don't understand it, but
I think this is another good example of don't pay too much attention to what the Rotten Tomatoes score is.
Yeah, I guess don't pay attention to the critic score. Like, listen to your Marvel fans. Like, if it's the fans still love it. So if you have Marvel fans in your life, like, people that like Marvel movies, like, ask their opinion on it, and, like, I guess go from what they're saying.
And even Marvel fans are, there are some detractors of this. And, like, I can see people, like, because people are saying, oh, it's too slow. I didn't think it was too slow. I just think that you had to deal with two separate storylines.
Yeah.
And they just had to kind of keep going back and forth. But I didn't think it was slow. I actually think it tied itself up pretty nicely. And it, like, the end, the pacing was very good for me.
Yeah, I think the buildup at the end was it was perfect.
Another criticism I heard was that people thought that the writing wasn't good or wasn't funny enough. Like, there was times in here that I genuinely was laughing my butt off in the theater. Like, I was clapping. I was very much loving it. Like, the whole, like, literally anything that MODOK was in, like, I loved. And, like, I guess that's another criticism, that the CGI is bad. I'm like, have you seen MODOK in the comics? Like, he ain't supposed to be, like, human or realistic. Like, it's
like,
supposed to look
like
goofy. It's supposed to look
funny looking thing.
Yes, like, and so, like, you know, when you look at Corey Stoll's face on MODOK, it definitely feels like it's, like, been warped or, like, kind of, but, like, that's what it's supposed to be. Like, I thought the CG was really good in this movie. Like, I didn't, like, I never once saw something in this movie, like, we're watching the CG and I'm just like, dude, that looks fake, or dude, that looks like whoever was working on that scene was underpaid and overworked, and it just looks awful. I never once had that moment in this movie.
Yeah.
And maybe that would change if I saw it again, but, like, I was being very mindful going into this movie, knowing, like, I need to like remember things. I need to, like, be very vigilant and watch for different things, because I know I'm going to review. I know we're going to come here
and talk
about it on the show. So, like, I know I need to, like, be informed. I need to know what I'm talking about when I come on here. And, like, I never once thought that anything looked like just bad CGI. Yeah. One thing I didn't question. So when they're in the quantum realm and they grow bigger, they're, like, in slow-mo almost. It almost seems like they're just going just a little bit slower. And that's how they are in, like, you know, especially, like, when you saw it, like, with Ant-Man when he became, like, Giant Man in the airport scene in Civil War. Like, it seems like he's slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that. I don't know if it's just, like, that's how Marvel has decided to do that with, like, the visual, you know, effects department. But, like, that's the only thing, like, I can really criticize, because I don't understand, like, why he would be slow-mo. But
the only thing I can think of is because I think they're trying to imagine, like, if somebody were really that big, like, I don't think they could actually move that fast. So I think they maybe wanted to, like, make sure that came off like that, you know, trying to, like, not to get, like, all sciencey or anything, but, like, the actual physics of, like, how somebody would motion in that way being so big. And I think they would just be slower. So, but
I don't know. So those were, like, again, like, I don't really have a whole lot of criticisms in the movie. I do have small critiques here and there, but I thought, like, character-wise, it was pretty on par for what we've seen so far. We didn't get a whole lot of, like, really extra development with Hope, which
I guess maybe that could be, like, because it's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and there really wasn't, like, a whole lot of, I guess her Wasp.
Yes.
There is Janet Wasp.
And there's, like, a lot of
it's a very Janet forward story, and she was the Wasp. So I think people maybe could be critical of that, but overall, like, the story and everything, like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was really good. Do you want to talk about the end credit scenes? Yeah,
so we got two end credit scenes, and I was surprised by them because they were both very meaningful end credit scenes. The first one was that was with kind of, like, the Coliseum of Kangs.
Yes, and it kind of made me think, like, there's, like, a tiered system to the Kangs, like, because you have, like, the three on top, the Pharaoh,
the cyborg,
and I don't know
the Emperor.
The Emperor, okay, yeah. So you have, like, those three that seem to be kind of, like, in charge,
and the Emperor and the Egyptian are very much taken from the comic books. Those are the cyborg. I'm not too familiar with, but, like, the other two versions of Kang are very much taken from the comic books and are pretty comic book accurate too. Looking at them. But then
you have all of, like, because they're, like, kind of set up in, like an arena, like, they're So you have like these three like that seem to be in charge, and and they're talking, and then you kind of have like all these other Kang variants that seem to be like the warriors almost, like the fighters. And then you have like the stand full of like the spectator Kangs.
Yep, and all of the I guess competitor Kangs or like the warrior Kangs are all coming through the square portals that Reed Richards came through in Multiverse of Madness. So, which kind of makes a little bit of sense because Kang is a descendant of the Richards family in the comic book. So, like, it would make sense that eventually they would have like the same type of tech. But then they kind of pan over to the spectator stands, and there's several different versions or types of Kangs. Like, there's a Skrull Kang, and there's a different alien Kang, and there's a lot of like just like Kangs kind of cheering on all these Kangs in the arena. And I saw like that scene where they kind of pan over to the Kangs in the stands. Like, that is like an almost shot for shot remake of a panel from the comics, like almost to the placement of where the Kangs are, which I thought was crazy that like that would be something. So like you're right, it seems like there's a sort of tiered system where there's the Kangs that are fighting, the Kangs that are kind of operating everything, and then the Kangs that are like just spectating on everything. So I don't know, like my thought was that they're going to fight to see whatever the superior Kang is, and then that Kang is going to be the Kang that we're going to see later on in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars.
Because like the three top Kangs, like they're kind of like discussing the demise of the Kang.
And they are like, look what we created. Yeah.
So
it'd be interesting to see where they kind of take that. But so we know that all the Kangs are getting together now, which we know from He Who Remains in Loki is not a good thing.
Right.
He knows that this multiversal war is going to happen when all these Kangs get together. So like they're definitely setting up this multiversal war. And then speaking of Loki, that's what brings us to our second end credit scene, which I believe is just a shot from the Loki TV series.
I took it as like a scene from the new series that's coming out. So
so you have a different version. It's like a 19th century version of a magician Kang.
He's up on stage, and in the audience is Loki and Mobius. And Mobius is like, this is the guy? Like, he doesn't look that.
And Loki is petrified.
Yeah,
he is scared to death of what he sees up there. So it'll be interesting to see where that kind of falls into place. Like, obviously, we've planted the seeds that we're going to see Kang again in Loki. So it's just a matter of time. Loki will be coming out sometime this year, like when we're going to see him again. I wouldn't be surprised if we get an announcement pretty soon of when we're going to see Loki pop up again, because it should be pretty soon, with the next couple months. So we know there's more Kang to expect, and I just don't know how that old-timey magician Kang compared to the Kang that we've seen fight Ant-Man. What are their relationships to all the Kangs that are in the Coliseum? So I'm very, like you said, it's very exciting to see to see where they could be able to speculate.
Well, yeah, because you have like all those Kangs in the arena, and it's just like, well, are they like getting ready to battle one another? Are they getting ready to like? Are they going to be given like you need to go to this timeline and you need to go to this timeline? Like, where are they going to pop up again? Like, where are we going to see them next? I don't know. So
and then are we going to see them pop up in like? Are we going to see like Doctor Strange pop up, because like Doctor Strange is out there fighting off incursions, and Kang has mentioned like he's he's sending all these different Kangs are out there at these different timelines to basically stop incursions or to take over these incursions. So like, you know, we've really are starting to tie in even more bits of the MCU with this movie, and I just love this movie. I really do. I think it's great. Critics be damned. I guess to wrap it up, what would you give this movie for a score?
I'm kind of teetering between like an 8 maybe an 8.5.
I initially thought an 8.5, and then thinking about it a little bit more, I'm going to bring it down to an 8.
That was my initial gut. I think it was an 8. And I think that's fair. I think it's a great movie. Is it the greatest movie? No. Like, I mean, definitely if you're going to stack them against some other Marvel movies, it's not going to hold up. Is it the worst? No, by no means is it the worst. I think it was a great way to kick off Phase 5. I think I just love that it's getting us, like, that anticipation feeling. At least I have it, like, and I love, like, we had such a great conversation yesterday on our walk. I feel like this was a great conversation, and I'm very excited to see where Marvel is going in Phase 5. So I think this movie just set it up so well, and I just love the Ant-Man movie-esque about it. Like, you got Scott Lang Ant-Man, you get Hank Pym Ant-Man, and you get, like, his whole, like, army of ants coming out. Like,
then the whole army of ant-men helping Ant-Man.
Yeah, like, it's just I love it. So I really enjoyed this movie.
Me too.
Okay. So I have one more question.
Okay.
Since this is the third installment of the Ant-Man franchise.
You gonna make me rank them?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious where you think between the three, how do they fall for you?
Ant-Man and the Wasp is definitely my third place.
I agree with that. But then I was thinking, like, is this Quantumania one, is it better than the original Ant-Man?
I say they're very close. Again, this is initial. It hasn't even been 24 hours since we've seen the movie.
I know.
I'm gonna go with Quantumania and then the Ant-Man movie.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Ant-Man number 1. So it goes 1, 3, 2, in my book. I think that number 1 was just a very good standalone film. Very fun characters, hilarious. And it really set up the universe that Scott lives in. Number 2, the characters were still there. I don't think it was quite as funny. The villain, the antagonist in Ghost, just didn't hit for me all the time. I do think that Ghost is a good character to keep exploring. I was hoping to see her more in Thunderbolts. I do believe that they took her out of Thunderbolts. I think I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. Obviously, that's hasn't come out, so we'll still have to see, like, what remains of that. But I think that it just didn't do it for me all the way. So that's why I'm going to rank it in third place.
Yeah.
And then this one, it was a good way to feature the family aspect that Scott wanted so much and was, had worked so much to get, work towards, because his whole journey through anything he does was for the betterment of his family or his relationship with Cassie.
Yeah.
Or to, he didn't want to be a con anymore. He just wanted to pay child support so he could see Cassie. And then he was just trying to help out Hank and Hope and Janet. So, like, everything's been, for the betterment of his family. So I feel like this does a good job of kind of pulling that all together, but it just left me wanting a little bit more at the end, as opposed to, like, I just love how goofy and grounded in real life number 1 is. So that's why I'm going to rank the first Ant-Man movie is number 1, then Quantumania, then Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay, that's fair.
Would you agree with that assessment?
Kind of. I understand it, but I think
So what are your rankings?
I think I would do Quantumania.
Okay.
Then Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay. But regardless, Ant-Man and the Wasp is the
like, that is for sure, like, the bottom. But I feel like Ant-Man and then Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, they're different. Like, I mean, obviously,
it's hard to compare them.
Yeah, obviously Ant-Man is very, like, on the comedic side. And, like, the Quantumania did have it, but it was so different because there was no Luis in this movie. And which was fine because they were in the quantum realm, like, it would have been 95% of the movie. Like, there's no way he would have, like, I was kind of hoping for him, like, as one of the end credit scenes to, like, come in and do one of his funny lines, but yeah, I think this one for me just maybe edges out Ant-Man. And I think a lot of it is because I really don't like Darren. Like, I don't like his character in Ant-Man, and I really like him as MODOK in this movie. And yeah, so I think I would put Quantumania at the top. Okay. So
I could
at least right now that could definitely
they're
change.
Close for me, but I could see see the debate.
Yeah, I think because I just watched Ant-Man not too long ago, and I think I gave it a 7.5, and I gave Quantumania an 8. So
yeah,
so I'm like, I got to stick with that.
But if you've seen the movie, we definitely want to hear what everyone has to think or has to say about this movie. Do you agree with the critics? Is it the worst Marvel movie of all time? Do you agree with us where it was still a very great movie? We gave it an 8 out of 10 unicorn horns. I don't know. I really enjoyed this movie. I think what we got out of it and what was expected is it delivered on it. And we got to see Kang. We're gonna see Kang more. I could just imagine. So he was like very like menacing and like just a powerhouse in this. Just imagine when he goes up against.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's like the first time you see Thanos in the Avengers where it's just like him in his face and you're like, oh, he looks menacing. And then you get like Josh Brolin's Thanos at the end where he's just like ripping stones out of Vision's head, like menacing. Like, we're going to get that with this Kang. So like, stick around, be patient with Marvel. They're going to get there, and it's going to be terrifying when we get that. And it's going to be so good. But we've got some really fun content lined up for you in the future. We actually have dig a little deeper of Big Hero 6 coming out next week, actually. So we're going to get 2 movie reviews in a row. Very much different type of movies. Well,
both Marvel properties.
But both deal with kind of a quantum realmy.
Yeah.
So maybe not so much different.
There's some similarities there.
There's no ants in Big Hero 6. So stick around for that next week. We're very excited for that one. That one is one of our favorite episodes, dig a little deeper episodes that we've done, and we've got some fun stuff coming up. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode. It's another long one.
I know. Thanks for hanging around. And I know there's a lot of other Marvel podcasts that are doing their reviews too, and we definitely encourage you to go listen to theirs because they do such a great job. And we all have lots to say about these movies, and
it's always fun to like listen and see like what the other podcasts say, or like especially like when we've met up with like the Fan Club podcast, or we did the one with Brian from Mr. Marvel's Minutes and I think 894, just getting like their different opinions on it. Like, we all have different opinions. I'm very excited and maybe a little nervous to see what those other guys have to say.
I am so curious, so I can't wait to listen to their thoughts and opinions on this new movie. So.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting. So if you followed us and support us by listening to this, we definitely recommend going and listening to them too.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, anything final you'd like to say before we end today's podcast?
I don't know. I feel like this is a great movie, but the greatest movie of the year has yet to come out. The Marvels. I'm so waiting on that.
If you thought the critic reviews were bad for this one,
bring them on. I'm gonna show them a thing or two.
I'm so nervous about what the critics are gonna do.
I do not care because I love the Marvels. That poster that they just dropped is bomb, and I am so freaking excited for the Marvels. And if we're the only two, like I'm okay with that. I am so excited.
Well, if any of our listeners to end today's podcast find themselves not liking this movie, but wind up meeting people that do like this movie, just one last thing to say to you: just don't be a dick. There's always time to not be a dick. And if you watch this movie, you'll get that reference. Follow us on all the socials. Instagram. Well, that's our only social, but follow us anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Spotify, YouTube, all those places. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We got a lot of awesome response from our first episode. I was very, I shouldn't say, surprised by how many people we had watching it, but I'm very happy with the amount of views we got on that. So keep them coming.
Yeah,
keeping us happy over here.
We feel the love, and it's very nice.
Yeah, so thank you so much. But for this Quantumania review episode of the Team Unicorn podcast, I'm Tyler.
I'm Sammy.
And it's been magical. And don't be a dick.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Team Unicorn podcast. You can find us on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, like, and review wherever you are listening, and follow us on Instagram to keep up with all things Team Unicorn. And remember, stay magical.
Who's an Avenger now?
We did get a new Avenger in this movie, so that's pretty cool.